Anxious to get back out this week. Obviously, our performance Saturday against Oregon left a lot to be desired, and so our kids had a really good practice yesterday. Really showed up on Monday with a good resolve, and anxious to get back out and have a chance to compete and get that bad taste out of their mouth. And we're excited about playing a home game against a good Washington State football team this week, and anxious to have a chance to compete and hopefully start building something. But we had a really good practice yesterday. Was very, very pleased with the way our guys responded and practiced, and so that's encouraging. We got to continue to build on that and get ready for this game on Saturday.
Okay, questions?
Sonny, can you talk about just your defensive line's performance this year and kind of how you evaluate it? I think you got 4 sacks in 4 games, but for the first time this week, now you get to play a quarterback who's you don't have to worry about him running too much. I've
been a little surprised we haven't been more productive, honestly. I thought we would. A lot of that has to do with what we've seen and what people have done to us. We just hadn't seen a lot of straight drop back passes. Most of the stuff's been off of play action, or some of it's been moving the pocket, or we've seen a lot of different things besides just straight drop back pass. And so, and quite frankly, we haven't put people in a lot of those situations. A lot of sacks come as a result of getting people in 3rd and longs and them having to drop back and throw, and we just haven't done a great job of getting people into too many 3rd and longs this season. And when we have, people have haven't always dropped back and thrown it. So, our production hadn't been great up there. Thought it would be a little bit better. Needs to get better. We need to pressure this week and get some sacks, and that's going to be a big thing for us Saturday is getting pressure on the quarterback. Anytime you face a passing team who's good at what they do, and Washington State's good at doing what they do, you've got to make the quarterback a little bit uncomfortable. So we've got to be able to get some pressure.
Coach, can you talk about just your relationship with Mike Leach? Obviously, you guys spent a lot of time together at Texas Tech and also a little bit at Kentucky. Just kind of maybe.
Obviously, Mike and I go way back. Met Mike in '97. I was his GA at Kentucky, and so I've known him for a long time. We've spent a lot of time together through the years, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. He's a really good football coach. He's a fun guy to be around, great personality. I think has been the biggest influence on me from a football standpoint of anybody I've been around. So, I think it's, it'll be a little bit unusual playing against him on Saturday. The thing about games like this is, football is not about coaches, it's about players. And so I don't think it's going to have 1 ounce of impact on the football game either way. I'm familiar with him, he's familiar with me, so you just kind of mark those things off the list, and then the players got to go out and make plays. And so that's really, I don't think it's going to have any impact on the game whatsoever, but and then it'll be nice to talk to him before the game, and then, we'll start coaching and playing, and he won't think about it, I won't think about it, and we'll shake hands afterwards and reminisce after the season, I'm sure, or after recruiting. But, it's really, anytime you play against these people that or people you like, or people you worked with, or people you're comfortable with, it's really a lot less significant than people think it would be. Just because, we've got a job to do, and our focus is on our team. And, as I said, that's one of those things you think about it in the off season, but you don't think about it at all during the week.
You haven't coached against him since you left Texas Tech. How often have you seen him really in the last 4 years?
I see him at the coaches' meetings, and we spent a significant amount of time together at those things, and see him at the, Fiesta Bowl event in Arizona, and, so we stay in touch.
Is there ever really after recruiting?
Yeah. Question was, is there ever after recruiting? Not really.
Is there anything that you can really pinpoint that you've taken from him and made it a part of your coaching style or repertoire?
Yeah, I think there's probably too many to name, honestly. Just, I think I think Mike has first of all, I've always respected Mike for being himself. I think sometimes in a world of coaches, whatever the flavor of the month is kind of what people like, and whoever's successful, everybody all of a sudden patterns themselves after whoever that person is. And, Mike's Mike, and he's original and one of a kind. And I think that's been the biggest thing. He's real. Mike doesn't put on airs, and I've always respected that. And I think that's probably been the biggest thing. It's just, teaching me about being authentic, and, players can see through, bull, and he, there's no bull with him. So I think the players have always respected him because of that.
Can you talk about maybe some advantages in terms of, obviously the person who knows how to stop the air raid offense is someone who runs it themselves, so maybe some pointers you've been able to give Andy, things like that?
Yeah, the weird thing about stopping stuff is we've all coached in games where, people have tendencies, and, your players may know 80% of the time exactly what play's coming, and they may be able to stop it 0% of the time, just because the other team is so good at executing it, or their players play so fast, or so the air raid's built on simplicity and repetition, and so when you build an offense on those things, he's not trying to trick you or scheme you or anything. He's just trying to out execute you, and so I think as a result, familiarity doesn't really matter in a lot of ways, as much as it would if you're playing against somebody who's really trying to scheme you. Does that make sense? And so I think, I think it's probably a little bit of an advantage, and certainly Andy and I have had discussions this week, but at the same time, we've got to just play good fundamental football, and if we do that, then the rest will take care of itself.
Are you worried at all, Sonny, about running out of defensive linemen? It seemed to be an area that you had pretty good depth, but you've lost basically 3 ends now that you started the season with.
Yeah, we have concerns about running out of them, and safeties and corners have kind of been, and maybe offensive linemen. So those are kind of issues that we're dealing with, but that's part of football. And we've got to develop our young players and bring them along, and stay healthy. It's going to be important for us to stay healthy.
Coach, kind of going off the topic of defensive backs, this being such a pass-heavy offense that you're going to face, did you see any encouraging signs last week from your defensive backfield that are going to lead into this week?
Yeah, I think so. I think I think Joel Willis has gotten better and showed some signs last week of doing some good things when Cam went down. I think Isaac Lapite is improving, the more he gets a chance to play. Obviously, Cam Walker, I think, gets better and better and better every rep. And the good thing is when you're as young as we are, you've got, you can see improvement, almost on a day-to-day basis. And so, we had this conversation earlier. I think at one time in the game the other night we had, Isaac Lapite, Joe Willis, Cameron Walker, and DeMarie on the field at the same time, I believe. And we had a converted wide receiver, a walk-on, and 2 freshmen playing DB against the best offense in college football. It's usually not a good matchup. They're good. They're good players. They're going to be good players. They're just kind of inexperienced,
I forgot what I was going to say. Well.
Can you talk about maybe some of the differences between your philosophies of the air raid and Mike Leach's? I noticed that they're running just under 70 plays per game, so is he kind of differ on the tempo aspect?
Yeah, they don't play with a ton. They're not a fast-paced team. Mike's never done that. He's got a real good reason for doing it, and I think it's really smart. Mike believes that offensive football is about establishing a rhythm and playing in that rhythm, and that's why they've always been a no-huddle team, but not necessarily a fast-paced team. They just want to play in their rhythm.
What's your impressions of Halliday, their quarterback? He was a little bumped around the other day, but it sounds like he's going to play.
Yeah, I like him. He's kind of got a gunslinger mentality. He's got a nice arm. He'll fit some balls into some pretty small windows at times. I think he's a good player. I really do. I think he's, gotten better. You look at the tape last year of him playing and the tape this year, I mean, he's really improved. I think their whole offense has. I mean, you can tell it's their second year. I mean, everything happens faster now than it did a year ago. And that's again, the simplicity of the style of offense they play. Is that that simplicity allows your guys to play really fast, and I think that's the biggest improvement they've made is the speed at which their players are playing at, and that includes a quarterback and his decision making.
Do you think we'll see that same thing from you guys? Do you expect that
Oh,
a
yeah.
year from now that it'll just be sort of as
Yeah.
it evolves and matures?
Sure. I mean, it's a little bit like what you saw the other night in the Oregon game. I mean, when they put their second group in, all those are scholarship players. They're just young. They didn't look the same. It wasn't the same speed, because it's a lot of young guys doing it. And so that's the progression. I think in year 3 they'll be even faster, and we'll be the same way. I mean, that's like I said, you can see the dramatic difference in Oregon when they put their twos in. They're very good players. They're heavily recruited guys. They just haven't done it. And so what Oregon does so well is they put so much pressure on you by playing fast. I don't mean lining up fast. Their players, everybody runs fast, and all the things are magnified as a result. And Washington State is headed that direction as well. I mean, I think that's what happens, and we would expect it to happen to us, and hopefully quickly.
When you play against the Cougs and they don't run the ball much, they're a little bit more than last year, it looks like, but still I think they're averaging like 60 yards a game rushing or something. Can you afford to ignore that at the expense of going after the quarterback, or how do you balance that?
No, you've got to. I think the thing in their run game is they're going to run it at times, and you've got to not let them have a big play when they do, because they're going to run it when they've got numbers in the box. A lot of it's going to be on the quarterback to check them into runs when they see favorable matchups, whether it's 6 in the box versus their 2-back sets, or 5 in the box versus a 1-back set. A lot of times that's on the quarterback to check that. And so, when you're playing 5 in the box, and again you're trying to cover everybody up, that's when they run it and run it well. And typically they're pretty productive in their run game. They may not hand it off that much, but they're getting positive yards because they're running into very good number situations and leverage situations. And that's the way typically their run game works.
Sonny, I think you spent almost all of yesterday's practice on the defensive sideline and watching the defense. How, obviously coming in with last year's performance at Louisiana Tech on defense wasn't great, and you had a little bit of that reputation. How important is it to you to
It's very important. I mean, because, if you're going to win a championship at any level of football, it's going to be because of your defense. I mean, that's just the way it works. Now do you have to score points and everything? Sure you do. You have to score, but the good teams, the Miami Heat's really good at defense. They win an NBA championship. I mean, it's just you go down the list of football teams, and it's the same thing. I mean, Alabama won a national championship last year in football, and they're good on defense. Now they gave up 42 points and 620 yards against Texas A&M 2 weeks ago. So I mean, game's changing, but you have to play good defense. They shut out Ole Miss this week. I mean, so that's the way the things work. But so I mean, I know that. We know that as a staff. We know that as a program. That we're going to have to get good on defense if we're going to compete for championships, and that's why we're here. I mean, that's why we came to Cal, was to have a chance to play on a big stage and compete for a championship. And so, we understand that, and we've had some unusual things happen to us in terms of injuries, but that's part of it. And also we've faced, really good offenses. And so when you do that, the numbers get a little skewed, and it's the same thing. I mean, if we went out and played a different schedule early in the year, we'd all be in this room feeling pretty good about ourselves right now. And, we wouldn't really know much about our team. And I think right now a lot of people know a lot about our team because of who we've played and the way we've been exposed in some situations. And, in the short term it's painful, but in the long term it's healthy. And so, it forces us to continue to evaluate everything and tighten things up and get it fixed. But I mean, as I said, we could be sitting here, at 3-1 right now, feeling pretty good about ourselves, and really not know much about our team.
Sonny, are you surprised by how much different the Pac-12 is than when you were here last time?
Yeah, it's
Stylistically.
yeah, it's the whole thing's changed. I mean, it's changed from top to bottom. I mean, it's changed from kind of a status quo league in a lot of ways to a league that's cutting edge, and I mean, from the commissioner and the way he runs the league, to the way the league is marketed, to the explosion of facilities that are happening in the league, and people continuing to provide resources to football. I think everybody realizes how good this league can be and how important winning football is to all these athletic programs in the league. And so I think there's been a huge commitment in terms of facilities, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of money to everybody throughout the league. And so I think, the television deal was a big part of that. And I think people are realizing now how good the league is. And so when that changed, I think that if it forced athletic directors and decision makers to go be aggressive as well. And so, I think you've seen a lot of coaching changes, and, I think you're going to continue to see more. Obviously, just saw one, Sunday or Saturday, I suppose. And so, it's a tough league. It really is. It's top to bottom. I believe it's the best. I really do. Just the depth, I think, is as good as it is anywhere. And so it's changed. It's different. And everyone's gone, tempo and fast pace and spread and, playing aggressive. And so it's a vastly different league, 4 years later than it was 3 or 4 years ago.
For all the talk about the SEC, do you look at the schedule, for instance, that Alabama plays for the next month and compare it to what anybody in your league plays?
Yeah, I don't know how you compare those things. Because there's so many variables. But it's, we've had this discussion many, many times. 8 conference games is a huge deal. That is a big deal. And then who you play outside of conference is a big deal. And I haven't looked at Alabama's schedule. I don't know who they played out of conference.
They got Georgia State this week.
Yeah, Georgia State. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. It's and their justification is always, the league is so good. And again, it's 8 conference games. I don't know. As I've said many times, with the college football playoff on the horizon, I think there needs to be a standard in college football, that everybody does the same thing, because the college football is weird because it's the one sport that's judged on kind of a beauty pageant. You have 12 beauty pageants, and then they vote on the best looking candidate at the end of the year, where, and all you have to do is look good. And so that's what makes this thing different. I think in the end, I think everybody needs to have the same road to a national championship, whether it's 8 conference games, 9 conference games. Okay, if you're going to play 9 conference games and 3 non-conference games, then you're going to play a BCS school, a 1AA school, and then a non-BCS 1A school, and you have to play home and homes. And I think there needs to be it needs to be set up like the NFL if you're going to have a playoff, in my opinion. So I just don't think there's the level of fairness across the leagues in a lot of ways. And again, it sounds like you got sour grapes or whatever, but I don't feel that way at all. I mean, the SEC's won 7 national championships in a row, and they've had good football teams, but I mean, there's anybody that takes a look at it knows that's not just because they've had good football teams.
Kind of flipping the script here, going back to this week.
Yeah.
With the similar offenses, is there any chance the practice format might be more of a starting offense versus starting defense, or will it be primarily scout?
Yeah, we'll leave it pretty much the same. I think we always go good on good against each other, and we'll do it in pass skill this week, all week, because of that's pretty similar. But the run stuff is going to be a little bit different, and the screen game's a little bit different as well. So, we think that we'll probably stay to the same schedule for the most part.
Washington State had the top, statistically anyway, pass defense before last week, and then Stanford kind of had their way with them. Was that an aberration? Was that because of execution, schemes? Looking at that game, how does it explain what went wrong for the Cougs on that?
Yeah, I think, it's kind of like we talked about earlier with they hadn't played, USC wasn't exactly setting the world on fire throwing the football, and they hadn't played teams that was necessarily their forte, and so I think that's part of it. I mean, that's always a little bit of a contributing factor. Just when you have a small sample size, that's always a little bit of a factor. It's kind of like we talked about earlier. I mean, we're giving up a lot of points, but we're facing teams that score a lot of points, and so that certainly has an impact on everything. I mean, who you play always has an impact on your performance. Whether it's win or losing or stats or whatever, because every team, has different strengths and weaknesses. But, obviously it speaks to the way they've played defense. I mean, they were a top 15 defense a week ago. I haven't looked at the stats yet this week. I'm not sure where they fall in the national rankings or anything like that. But, they're playing very good, solid, fundamental defense. I thought they did a really nice job against Stanford, stopping the run game, especially on 3rd and short. I mean, they stuffed them on a bunch of 3rd down and short situations. And I thought they played physical. This is a tough football team. I mean, they like to play physical. They like to play tough. Their defense is well coached, has a good scheme. So I think it's a combination of things.
Yeah, Coach, I think when you took the job, for right or wrong, probably most people viewed you as heavily an offensive mind. That might defer on the defensive side of things to Coach Boo. Would you say that's true, and to what degree is what we're looking at your philosophy out there on the defense?
No, I mean, it's everything's my philosophy. I mean, I'm the head coach, and so it's all my philosophy. I mean, I'm not gonna stand up here and say, I mean, I want Andy to call defenses that result in a 4-yard loss every play. That's my idea of good defense. But I'm not so sure that's practical. Yeah, I mean, it's all me. I mean, 100% me. So I mean, he's doing exactly what I want him to do.